Om Lokaha Samastaha Suki Nobhavantu. May all beings be happy and peaceful. Phoenix here. Welcome to my channel. It is Tuesday, March 14th. I'm again posting this video early because of the recent price action. It has been insane, admittedly. For most traders, there's been some pretty aggressive price action, to say the least. And it's been rather unexpected, even for myself. But you can stay sane in this environment. It sometimes means stepping back from the charts and not trading and knowing that cash is a position. And so for me personally, I have been meditating more and spending more time in nature, but also really still focused very much on the charts. And I'm actually going to be spending all of this summer in Costa Rica. And for part of that time, I'll be helping to facilitate this retreat, Heaven on Earth. Things have been shifting around for me a lot recently as well in my personal life, as I'm sure you probably have also had a lot of big shifts going on in your life. It's been really weird, and I'm hearing that the astrology is really off right now as well. I'm not following that too closely, but if you want to join me in Costa Rica, then check out the link down in the description below, and also you can DM me if you have any questions about it. It's going to be a great retreat. So let's look at the charts. Big deep breath. Big deep breath. What is this? This is the 200 weekly moving average for Bitcoin. Just ignore all the other lines. Just focus on the yellow. Notice that it came and wicked above it. So deviated above initial pretty strong rejection around 26K for Bitcoin. Now, as I mentioned, in previous bear markets, we didn't have this, okay? If it did drop below, it was only very briefly, and that only happened in, I have to pull up the log chart here. It only happened in 2020. Very briefly, okay? It was about a week. And then we see in 2018, it used it as support, and even in 2015. And so just the fact that it's still below that is pretty bearish for Bitcoin, but it's coming back now to retest it. So this level is pretty critical, 25,382 here. If it can get above and hold above, then that would give a lot more weight to the upside argument. So it revisiting at minimum 28,700 or so. So I'm going to go through all of the setups for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we'll look at some of the alts as well. But again, when there's not really a whole lot of clarity on the majors, then I step back from the minors. And so let's take a look now. We'll drop down the lower time frames. Let me turn this off. And what just happened with Bitcoin. So I mentioned the setups, the long setups that are still actually valid. And I did take a long on Ethereum, and I can show you there was a breakout on Ethereum that happened on the lower time frames. It was 2:30 in the morning, my time. It was worth it though. And I did profit from about here, 1714. And I actually took profits up here because I was just not feeling the price action. And lo and behold, it did come back down again. So is this it? Is this the end of the rally? I'm not so sure. It's hard to tell right now because first of all, we have the Dixie and it has been down, but it is consolidating. And so it could be getting ready for another push up again. But I think the Dixie could be irrelevant for the next week or so as we await FOMC, which is on the 22nd. Now, we already know that there's a much higher chance that they're going to have a 25 BP hike instead of 50, which really, it's just psychological. And it seems like that is enough for markets to be risk on again, at least for the time being. And we're seeing that reflected in the S&P 500 and also in the tech sector, which really makes not a lot of sense, but that's kind of the way it is. That's why I always say, forget about the fundamentals and just focus on the price action, because you will go absolutely bonkers trying to predict based on fundamentals. Like as a perfect example, Meta just laid off 10,000 employees and they're up about 11% in the last 2 days because they laid off 10,000 employees, and that's somehow supposed to positively impact earnings. And also, so they're thinking about what's going to potentially happen in the future without really knowing. So it's all speculation, of course. But meanwhile, we had multiple banks failing, and the sell-off from that was actually not as much as the the rise in the prices, or the rise in the S&P when there was the Fed relief. So kind of interesting, right? I think that everybody is sort of anticipating that the Fed is just going to step in and save the day. And maybe that's the case. I don't want to rule it out, but that's just sort of the background context. And so that's also making it a little bit tricky to trade, because now, technically speaking, this would have been a short trigger for me for Bitcoin. Some people aggressively shorted this 26K region. Good on you if you did that, but I didn't have any technical reason to do so. Now, I mentioned, let's look at long scenarios here first, because this is all irrelevant at this point. But if we break back above 25K, 25,200, hold above here, gets a pattern, breaks out, here's your first target around 26, I would say 26K. And then next target would be the mid, and I'll explain to you how this is the mid in a moment here, but this is around just under 27K. And then we've got up here, which is 28,750 or so. Okay, so now let's look at this on the higher time frame so you can see this floor of support here, very obvious, would be an obvious resistance level on the way up. That's why I mentioned 28,800 on Twitter and in my last stream. Now, this is the mid between this level and this level here, okay? So those are some very clear take profit levels should Bitcoin choose to push back up, which it very well may. And so the short side of this would be if Bitcoin does actually come back and retest again and fails again. So it's already failed once. We've already had a failed retest once. It was here. So it broke down, actually pushed all the way back up here, and then the very next candle broke down again. So it's already had one failed retest. So for me, I'm not going to give it 3 strikes. I'm going to give it 2 strikes, and then I'd be shorting it. Maybe not a full-size trade just yet, maybe compounding it if it gets below 24K. And then if it gets back below the monthly open, that's around 23,150, then it's sort of game over, I would say, for Bitcoin, as far as coming back down at least to these lows down here, 21,400, and then we're looking at 20,554. Like I said, my strategy is either waiting for some consolidation. Not even either. I'm waiting for consolidation and then a breakout, because that's the way that it has been. And if you just study these charts from a 5 or 15 minute perspective, what you'll see is that there are definitive candles that are sort of determining the direction, whether it's going to be a continuation or a reversal. So let's just look at this on a 15-minute chart. I can go through and I can highlight all the candles that would show that. So this was a continuation signal here, okay, that we were going to push higher. And of course, on the lower time frames, you'd see this broken up into smaller candles. Sometimes just a single candle. Here is another one here, okay, broke out above this consolidation zone here. And then we had multiple candles here, okay, that broke out above this consolidation range. And usually the candles are significantly larger than a large majority, if not all, of the candles that precede it. So that's really what I'm looking for, because that's the indication that the whales are involved. Everything else is just choppy retail, basically. And that's my strategy. That's my main strategy right now. So I'm sharing that with you. I hope that you find it valuable. Now, when it comes to Ethereum, what has Ethereum been up to lately? ETH-BTC was actually, it's been just really whipsawing, as far as like it came down really hard here, but then got back inside and actually now could push back up again. So from a long perspective, I like Ethereum better than Bitcoin, but they've been pretty dramatic in their moves. Now, Ethereum is currently sitting above this range. It's above this range high here. This is sort of a deviation gray area here. But so if it consolidates above the 1700 again, and then shows strength, this is the same setup as before, except now maybe a take profit at 1780 initially, maybe small profits there. And then we've got 1850 or so, just under maybe, and then just under 2K would be my take profit levels. And that just depends on whether Ethereum again, if Bitcoin gets above, then that would be a signal for Ethereum. If Bitcoin holds above 25, 200 again, then that's obviously a long trigger for Ethereum. And I really wouldn't doubt it for Ethereum, because this is still very much a range. This is still the accumulation zone for Ethereum. And so this would be the high, the weekly level here. And this would be the mid, which also corresponds to, it looks like a pretty sensible area for taking profits. So 1850, I wouldn't be surprised if it did that. I also wouldn't be surprised if it just broke down from here and just continued to falter, and then we get a decisive candle to the downside, and then back below the monthly open here. That's around 1600 for ETH, and then it's most likely headed back down here. So again, another take profit here, and then trading it potentially down much lower, especially if stocks really turn. But this, we could be looking at another week or longer with this bullish momentum. So the momentum going into it in favor of the bulls, there has been a lot of strong momentum going into it. Even though the last 4H candle was a pretty strong sell-off, we did have that rejection wick, and now it's looking like there's still a battle going on, and it still looks like bulls are in control. So we've got to give more weight to the upside. But I just want you to be sort of aware of, and try to be neutral, and try to not let what you want to see happen create a bias that makes it difficult to trade accurately. Okay, so this is where that stone cold emotion comes in. Not having any, I had to cut my meta short today because it was just outrageous. And of course it could come crashing down tomorrow, but the technicals aren't showing that yet. If the technicals are proving me wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. It's whatever, I'll take the loss and I'll move on, so that it doesn't snowball into something else. So people that were longing the top here are obviously sweating it out right now, but they're not exactly wrong yet, because we have these hourly candles that there's still some upward momentum, it looks like. And so this could, hopefully it won't happen again tomorrow super early in the morning around the stock market open because I need new hours. Another reason I'm looking forward to being in Costa Rica, because it's 4 hours ahead of where I am right now. But let's actually look at some of the alts, just because I said that I would. I don't know, I have friends that have been profiting a lot on alts right now, and I just can't. I can't be longing this because even though it looks, they look like they want to continue much higher. If you look from a daily perspective, Matic could reasonably push all the way back up to 131 again, but I'm not going to place bets on it when I'm not really sure. I think that if Bitcoin and Ethereum really hold above the levels discussed, 1700 and 25,200, then it's on for alts, and they're going to probably revisit some of their highs, like Atom, for instance. But you see already 4 daily candles, 4 daily green candles. It's not really stopping. If you catch the move early on, that's great, but I don't try and catch a move like this when it's well underway. And so that's one of the areas that's kind of like a no-fly zone for me. But I think that Atom could reasonably push back up, especially, you see this rejection wick on the 4H so far after retesting this monthly level, but it's a very volatile environment to be trading in. Phantom, just literally, I watched this rip as I was entering my long for Ethereum, and there was just no chance for me to even get into it. It was just so fast. This was it right here, and this was as I was so focused on Ethereum while this was happening. But if you see this move here, I mean, this was a 13% move. And so if that was your entire focus and you were able to really catch that breakout, then that's great. But I was focused on Ethereum. So optimism also could push up a lot higher, but I'm not going to give short triggers yet because I don't know. Well, I could say, obviously, what would be an obvious short trigger on optimism? Not here, But if it does push back up here, gets above again, and gets back inside, once again, just playing the range. It's just the range is all there is to it. And same for Litecoin. Litecoin could come back up and retest the top of this previous range here, and then that would potentially be a short trigger. That's around 90, and I do have an alert set on that one. But Litecoin, look at this. Look at how strong it's been. So I'm not going to fade these yet. Injective pushed all the way back up to the top and even a little bit higher. And Injective has actually been ahead of the curve with the alt, so to be curious to see if Injective starts to sell off or if it breaks out and pushes even higher from here. But there's no clarity on this when we don't know what ETH and Bitcoin are going to do. Lido even pushed all the way. I mean, I was shorting this all the way down here. I got out somewhere over here. It's pushed all the way back up in a matter of days for no good reason. Remember, none of this is for any good reason. People could say, you can make up a gazillion reasons, but there's nothing really that's changed aside from the failure of the banks. And, it would be one thing if Bitcoin and Ethereum were pumping and the alts were sort of hanging behind. You could say, well, it's because people are pouring their money into Bitcoin and Ethereum, but all the alts are just outrageously pumping as well. So I don't think that people are using alt as a safe haven in case their bank accounts fail, at least, I mean, aside from the degens, so Lido and Injective, looking at these previous, I'd be eyeing these levels here, 330 for Lido. I'm not going to long at this point. It's too late. It's definitely too late. I gave some of my profits back on this, shorting this weekend, which is fine. I'll make up for it at some point. Aptos actually hasn't been as strong as, and you could see it has met with some resistance on the way back up. It hasn't been very strong lately. Seems like they've lost interest in this, at least for the time being. And sometimes that's how it goes with alts. Like Optimism really actually lagged behind, but then when it did break out, it was fierce. It was 15, 20% or so in a day. And so that's what you have to be prepared for. And for me, my sanity is the top priority. And if I start feeling like I'm losing my sanity trading alts, I say, forget the alts, it's not worth it. And you'll see a lot of, I have to reflect on it, because I notice that when I'm not as balanced, I will trade alts under conditions that aren't ideal. And so until we see some relative strength that continues with Bitcoin and Ethereum, alts are really off limits for me. And a lot of them have just already pumped so much. We can see if there's any other ones, but I don't. Let's see what's pumping today. So we did go through Atom. AVAX hasn't been super strong. I mean, they could just continue to pop off at different times, but I'm not going to try to time that in this market. It's a very unique situation. So we have all of our setups for ETH and Bitcoin. Again, I think that I would be longing Ethereum over Bitcoin still, because ETH BTC is down, but it is actually making its way back up again. And it just seems to be coming over under pattern with the mid has been going on, it seems, for many weeks now, months even. You see this? But it's been really hovering close to the mid. I think that once Ethereum really and Bitcoin really do sell off, if that happens and we get back to 20K and below, then I think Ethereum will dump a lot faster. So Ethereum is just for me, I feel it's a more lucrative trade. But Bitcoin has, the strength of Bitcoin is the fact that it is just a cleaner chart. And when Bitcoin really pumped yesterday, Ethereum lagged behind, but then Ethereum did catch up to it. So this daily candle for Bitcoin is going to be really telling, because that's a pretty strong rejection wick. It's very rare that after a wick like this, it's rare that after a wick like this, at this place, at this point, that the price is going to push higher the next day. But see, we still have 2 hours left. So even if it pushes back to 25,200, it's still technically bullish. And we should have expected somewhat of a pullback. And I mentioned in the C3 channels, after 1, 2, 3, this is the fourth day here. And we had a weekend pump on top of it all. Obviously, there's going to be somewhat of a pullback. So we're getting that now. It's just got to wait and see if these levels hold. So 25,200, beneath that 24K. This is sort of a critical range to be watching for Bitcoin. That's going to give the signal whether to be going long or going short. I genuinely hope that you found value in this video. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Maybe share it with your friends. I really appreciate all of your support and all your amazing comments. It really keeps me going in these times, very strange times to be trading, and hang in there. And I hope that you are profitable this week. May all of your financial transactions be governed by a higher power. Have a beautiful rest of your day.